Libya sits directly between Tunisia and Egypt, two nations that inspire the world when their people rose up to take control of their own destiny. For more than 4 decades, the Libyan people have been ruled by a tyrant, Muammar Gaddafi. He has denied his people freedom, exploited their wealth, murdered opponents at home and abroad, and terrorized innocent people around the world, including Americans who were killed by Libyan agents. Last month, Gaddafi's grip of fear appeared to give way to the promise of freedom. In cities and towns across the country, Libyans took to the streets to claim their basic human rights. As one Libyan said, for the first time, we finally have hope that our nightmare of 40 years will soon be over.
This is a citizen from Libya expressing his thoughts of what's going on.
Muammar Gaddafi destroyed, دمر الشعب الليبي، دمر أساسنا. احنا قمنا بالثورة هذه عشان الجيل القادم. لنا عيالنا عشان أحفادنا. كونوا أساس سليم دولة متماسكة، خليهم يحبوا الوطن. معمر كررنا في ليبيا. احنا قمنا بالثورة عشان تماسكوا. رد الحب بين بعضنا. رد حب ليبيا. الثورة هذه أساساً مش لي أنا عمري 25 سنة. I'm 25 years old. This is not for me. I'm in now. خلاص. This revolution is not for me.
Today we're going to show you the problem that is currently happening in Libya that is a result of the lack of democracy over the decades. And by the end of this, we are hoping that you'll have more appreciation for the United States as a whole.
Next slide. Currently, the Eastern Hemisphere is going through a series of turmoil and changes that have become history in the making and for future generations to study. After Tunisia, that is on top by Algeria, and Egypt, started the revolution against their governments to take them from the presidential power, who are now their former rulers, Abuan, Ben Ali, and Hosni Mubarak, respectively, of executing the country's decision, or African country started doing the same, and this is Libya. People from this country are asking the current leader, Muammar al-Gaddafi, who has been ruling them for the last 42 years, to step down of his presidency autocratic ruling and allow them to practice democracy model like other Eastern and Western countries have done for a long time ago already. The problematic here is not only that the people of this country has been bound from their freedom in many ways and start with the right to elect their own government, which doesn't really exist. But that Gaddafi is relentless to resign his long-lasting presidency to a realistic term. But in order to understand this, the People's Revolution, as many historians had called this revolution, we have to know its background, the actual problem of Libya, and its possible solutions.
Today, we will show you the background of the People's Revolution and how Libya started its own problems and solutions to their problems.
Next slide, please. The spark of the revolution. According to Rania Abu Saif from the Time magazine, on December 17, Mohamed Bouazizi lit himself on fire because he wasn't allowed by the officials of this city to sell vegetables and fruits on the street and took his money away. This was the way that he could sustain his family, his mother, and his siblings. He couldn't get any response from the government of the city of Tunis, and his resolution was to lit himself on fire, causing some damage in front of the establishment. Unfortunately, he didn't right away. He suffered a couple of days for his actions, and the president from Tunis, Abid Ben Ali, visited him on December 28 and condemned all the protest acts that were going on in that city. Bouazizi died on January 4 of 2011. According to BBC News, a large group of people gathered on the day of his funeral and chanted all in unison, "Farewell, Mohammed. We will avenge you. We whip you for today. We will make those who caused your death whip." Next slide, please. President Abidine Ben Ali, after ruling 23 years in Tunisia, he resigned his presidency after a couple of days of people, asking him to resign. Now they're working their way to a democracy. Next slide, please. After Tunisia, Wael Ghanem used Facebook in Cairo, Egypt, to unite all possible youth in the Tahrir Square and to chant against who is now former, but was there, their president, Hosni Mubarak. Please, next slide. President Mubarak ruled these people for the last 30 years of their history. He was a United States ally, and one of the good things that he did, among the many bad that he did, was that he didn't allow fundamental Muslim religions to take over the country of Egypt. That's why he was one of our allies. However, people wasn't content with his way to rule the country. And on February 15, after 18 days of continuous demonstration that were not completely peaceful, Hosni Mubarak stepped down of the power on February 11. Next slide, please. Although Wael Ghanem asked people to be peaceful, there was a lot of consequences and struggle during the Cairo's revolution. People got injured, like we see here, police used force against the civilians revolt against the ruling people. Next slide, please. On February 15, after seeing all these situations, he is the man that is the responsible person for the ignition of the Libyan revolution, Fatih Tarbil, who is a human rights lawyer who has been investigating Muammar al-Gaddafi since 1996 for his human rights violations. He was apprehended on February 15 when the protests started and released a day later. Please, next slide. Muammar al-Gaddafi has been ruling Libya since 1969 for the last 42 years of their history. He has been not the best of rulers that history has seen. And after 78 days, including today, with not a positive response from him and his government to the protests of the people, there has been some victories for the opposition. However, many civilians and his own people is dead by now. Turn it over to Eric.
Alright. Libya in itself has a lot of problems, but the primary problem right now is Gaddafi himself. As you can see from this quote, Gaddafi is using snipers to shoot them down. By them, he means civilians, and let them bleed to death in the streets. He has cut off food, water, and electricity to starve them into submission. Like President Barack Obama said before, he's a tyrant. He rules with an iron fist. He's a very clear dictator. He's a man who does whatever he wants and gets away with it. Next slide, please. This is a map of Libya and some of the oil fields across it. Gaddafi ruled in terror. He would put people in jail, kill them, and for speaking out against him. He wanted the country the way he wanted to run. In 1988, 270 people were killed in the bombing of Pan Am jet over Lockerbie, Scotland. 2 Libyans were accused of carrying out the attack. Gaddafi refused to hand over the suspects, and the UN imposed sanctions against Libya in return. In 1999, Libya finally handed the suspects over, and sanctions were lifted. In 2003, Libya took responsibility for the Lockerbie bombing, and in 2009, the sole person convicted of the bombing was released. Gaddafi was all part of this and spearheaded almost every one of the operations, including the UTA flight and the Berlin disco bombing. In September 2009, Gaddafi spoke at the UN General Assembly in New York. During the hour and 40-minute address, he tore up a copy of the UN Charter, drew similarities between the UN Security Council and Al-Qaeda, and pushed for Tony Blair, then British Prime Minister, and former US President George W. Bush to be put on trial for the Iraqi war. He also aided the Palestinian, Irish, Spanish, and Italian terrorists. He is not a man to be trifled with. He used Libya's national oil wealth to fund his secret police, and he also used the wealth of blood money to buy his way into United Nations and United States sanctions. Fun fact, he has an all-female guard. The next problem is the government of Libya. Next slide, please. Where most countries have one main government, Libya has two as of now. The Tripoli-based government of Muammar Gaddafi refers to the Libyan state as the Great Socialist People's Libyan Arab Jamhuriya. And the Benghazi-based Transitional National Council refers to the Libyan state as the Libyan Republic. It is led by Mustafa Abdul Jalil and controls most of the eastern half of the country. As you can tell, two separate governments fighting for control over one country is not going to work out. Gaddafi is also using his military forces to oppress his people. He uses the forces to tame the revolution or anyone opposing him. The war in Libya also has impacts throughout the world. The world's financial markets have seen stocks fall when the crude oil prices skyrocketed, and fear of war in Libya has closed ports and much of their oil production because Western companies are afraid to go over there and mine for the oil. And right now, give you a solution, Andrew.
Hello. Next slide. Manifest destiny is a doctrine made in the 19th century. It is the destiny of the United States to expand its territory over the whole of North America and to extend and enhance its political, social, and economic influences. So with this said, this means that the United States has the instinct to go and help out other nations. That's just what we do. We are the #1 country in the world, so that's what we do. We like to help other people. Ibrahim Al-Dabahi, he met with the United Nations as well as Gaddafi and made an agreement for a no-fly zone. This no-fly zone means that Gaddafi cannot use his own aircrafts to hurt or harm the people of Libya. Now here's some solutions that me and my group came up with. So before pulling Colonel Gaddafi out of power, he must see these non-negotiable humanitarian terms. He first must cease fire against the people in these areas such as Benghazi, Zawiya, Benjawad, Bishir, Ugaila, and more. Then he must supply these places with food, water, gas, and electricity. These terms are not met. The United States and NATO, our allies, will enforce military action. This was said a while ago, but with the recent activities that happened in Afghanistan, we might put troops in Libya, but it's still questionable right now. But as of now, Barack Obama is in the process of moving troops out of Iraq. In the meantime, the U.S. will supply economical and humanitarian needs so that the people of Libya can carry out their goal peacefully. The United States will not be sending troops to Libya now, and we will not use brute force simply for the safety of the people in Libya. Our goal is to take Gaddafi out of power and ensure the safety of the people there. We are not at war, and we do not need to drop any nuclear bombs to wipe out Libya, simply, again, for the safety of the people there. President Obama has already said that the United States will not take on this issue alone, and that we'll get the help from other allies, such as NATO. Next slide. Gaddafi is taken out of power, Libya will establish a democracy. Now, first, this will be difficult for the people of Libya to understand at first because this will be entirely new to them. So with this new government, Libya can have a solid foundation to the growth of their new country. A government, as we know, can provide social order, security, public services, and economic systems for the citizens. This government will provide rights for the people, such as freedom of speech, right to bear arms, freedom of religion, trials for crime, etc. And, of course, there will be a new constitution as well. Next slide, please. So after all the major changes have been made, Libya should think about establishing good, helpful education. Because as we know, education leads to longer lives and higher paying jobs. They can lead to higher paying jobs simply because if you're well educated, you're more smarter. And longer lives, because if you're aware of the health risks that you're taking, you're more prone to taking care of yourself and your body. Please.
As a conclusion of all the information you have received today, we know that this is an international issue and technically shouldn't concern the United States. But as Andrew stated before, we have a mission to ensure the world itself is safe, just because we are the #1 country and we are the most powerful in the entire world. As President Obama said in his speech, therefore it is important for us, as citizens of the United States, to be aware of what's going on out there and not only here or our surroundings. It is important to us to know the matters that lead the people to the background of the revolution itself, the people revolution, Libya's problem, and its possible solution.
So why we should appreciate the United States? Well, simply we have arguably the best universities and education in the world. As you know, we get a lot of people from foreign countries to come to the United States and receive a good education. We're given the freedom to believe in any religion we choose. Right? It's very less likely to happen in other countries. And the U.S. has very good job opportunities and also provides Social Security. As we are the strongest military force in the world. Thank you.